Good day everyone, my name is Christian Del Arajo and along with the other members of my group, we are going to discuss about the agrarian reform in the Philippines. So we are going to discuss its policies, the history, the regulations, and the Republic Act number 6657 along with other terms, concepts included or aligned with this topic. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program of 1988, also known as CARP, is a Philippine state policy that ensures and promotes the welfare of landless farmers and farm workers, as well as elevation of social justice and equity among rural areas. Agrarian reform refers to the government-initiated redistribution of agricultural lands. This means that the lands will be distributed regardless of the products or whatever crops or fruits are produced in that land. These will be distributed equally to the workers or the farm workers, the farmers who are landless. And for an example, a landowner owns 25 hectares of land and he can only retain 5 hectares of that land and the rest will be distributed to his farmers or regular farm workers, and they will be given a certificate to validate their new properties. Public Act number 6657, or also known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law or CARL, was signed by President Corazon Aquino on 10 of June 1988. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law is responsible for the implementation of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, which is CARP in the Philippines. This law focuses on the industrialization in the Philippines together with social justice. The primary objective of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law was to successfully devise a land program in the Philippines. It was President Arroyo who signed the Executive Order number 456 on the 23rd of August to rename the Department of Land Reform to the Department of Agrarian Reform. This had been done to expand the functional area of the law. Apart from the land reform, the Department of Agrarian Reform began to supervise other allied activities to improve the economic and social status of the beneficiaries of land reform in the Philippines. Agrarian conditions in the Philippines. The implementation of the Agrarian Reform Law proceeded in a very slow pace. This was because of a lack of political will, and also the redistribution of lands was also very slow because there are land record problems, missing land titles, and many other factors hampering the government's move on fast-track land reforms.
What is DAR? DAR is the department's acronym representing the institution and its role as the lead agency in the implementation of Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. Green, which is the bottom part of the logo, stands for fertility and productivity, while yellow, which the acronym in the logo represents hope and a golden harvest of agrarian reform beneficiaries who are the recipients of their services provided by the department via CARP. Both colors imply that economic growth and sound rural development can be achieved through agrarian reform. What is the vision of DAR? The vision of DAR is a nation where there is equitable land ownership and empowered agrarian reform beneficiaries who are effectively managing their economic and social development for a better quality of life. Department of Agrarian Reform is the lead implementing agency of Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. It undertakes land tenure improvement and development of program beneficiaries. DAR conducts land survey in resettlement areas. It undertakes land acquisition and distribution and land management studies. The DAR also orchestrates the delivery of support services to farmer beneficiary and promotes the development of viable agrarian reform communities. The present Secretary of Agrarian Reform is John R. Castriosones. Secretary John Rualo Castriosones graduated as magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in political science at the then Trinity College of Quezon City. So let's move on to the history of agrarian reform. Agrarian Reform is a 100-year history of unfinished reform after the United States took over the country from the Spaniards. Before the Hispanic period, there were no owner cultivators, only communal land owned by the barangay, which consisted of aidatu, freemen, serfs, and slaves. The Spaniards replaced this traditional system of land ownership similar to existing system among several indigenous communities today and distributed the land haciendas to the Spanish military and clergy or established encomiendas, which is the administrative districts. The 1935 Constitution addressed the issue of foreign access to land. Corporations must have at least 60% Filipino ownership and use rights were limited in time. Other reforms include the limitation on interest rates on loans and an increase in the sharecropping share from 50% to 70%. But very little of these laws were really followed in practice, and the Hawk Rebellion was born. Under the Magsaysay and the Macapagal administration, land reform was again tackled, such as Mindanao Resettlement Program and the Land Reform Act of 1955. But no significant result were really achieved in terms of scope and magnitude of land transport. With martial law, the whole Philippines was declared land reform area under PD 27. Significant progress was made, but the continued practice of the share tenancy system covered limitation to rice and corn lands, the many exceptions allowed, and the shortcomings in support system. Although it was Marcos who set up the new Agrarian Reform Department, did much to limit the effectivity of the reforms in addressing the overconcentration of food program and rural poverty. So that's
Republic Act 9700 is an act strengthening the comprehensive agrarian reform program, extending the acquisition and distribution of all agricultural lands, instituting necessary reforms, amending for the purpose certain provisions of Republic Act 6657, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988, as amended and appropriating funds. Section 1 entails declaration of principles and policies. It is the policy of the state to pursue a comprehensive agrarian reform program. Section 2. Section 3. More specifically, the following lands are covered by the CARP. Section 4 entails the exception to retention limits. Provincial, city, and municipal government units acquiring private agricultural lands by expropriation or other modes of acquisition to be used for actual, direct, and exclusive public purposes, such as roads and bridges, public markets, school sites, settlement sites, local government facilities, public parks, and barangay plazas or squares, consistent with the approved local comprehensive land use plan, shall not be subject to 5-hectare retention limit. Let us move on to the Section 5.